Joining us on the How Did You podcast today is Kayleigh Brookfield, a TV producer at News UK. She's worked on the launch of TalkTV and was a vital part of it. How are you doing today, Kayleigh?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
I'm not doing too bad. You were quite a vital part, like I say, in Talk TV launching. How did it feel to be kind of like the onboarding and be like the first people around such a precedented precedented TV channel, that is now kind of outscoring Sky, GB News, and Good Morning Britain in some cases?
It was quite surreal, you know. So I've been at News UK since last March. And when I joined, we were planning to launch this TV channel that was imminent when I joined, and it kept being pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And so it kind of, for us guys that have been there since the very start of that, it kind of, we kind of got in our heads, do you know what, this is never going to happen. We're working on this product that is never going to launch. It keeps being pushed back and pushed back. And then sort of at the end of last year, I think we made the announcement that we were actually launching a linear TV channel. And we were all like, okay, wow, so it's really happening. So what we'd been doing in that time between March and December, I think it was working on the visualization of talk radio. So we were kind of getting one step closer to being prepared to launching a TV channel, but it wasn't quite there yet. So we were doing like visualized news bulletins for talk radio, which went out on their YouTube stream and a number of like streaming apps, which was really fun, but it never felt like the real deal. So once we found out that we were actually launching a TV channel, it was very, very exciting. And for us guys that have been there from the very start, we had a lot of responsibility in helping sort of scope the channel, sort of presenting ideas, and then when sort of all of the new people came on board, we were able to train them. So it was a lot of fun, and it still feels quite surreal, you know, every night sort of going to work like, oh, I'm actually working on a TV channel that's been in the making for over a year. But no, it's great fun, and we've done it, and we've managed to launch like a good product, and we're all really chuffed with it. So
I can guarantee that it's kind of somewhat euphoric because, like you say, you were there planning it for so long, then all of a sudden it gets launched. There's a massive upsurge of people watching it. You're outscoring all these different channels. But before that, you were a journalist and a writer, and you had a different background. Was this something that you're always planning to get into, or did you want to be an artist, a veterinarian, or something different?
Yeah, so as you said, I'm a journalist, trained journalist. I studied multimedia journalism at uni. I've done print journalism, I've done digital journalism. So when I graduated uni, I went straight into digital journalism at the Daily Express, where I was a video editor there. I was there for a couple of years before I was actually made redundant during the pandemic. So I kind of found myself in a bit of a weird position. I've been in a full-time job ever since I graduated uni. I sort of had a bit of a panic moment and was like, oh gosh, what am I going to do now then? As you know, it was very hard to find jobs during the pandemic. So I was applying, and I was getting nowhere. So I was like, okay, I'm going to have to do something different here. So I went freelance for a little while. I was working at the Mail Online, doing video producing for them. And I was also working a bit at the Metro. So I was sort of doing a bit of this, bit of that, but I was really looking for a full-time job. And during that time is when GB News announced that they were launching a channel. And also there was murmurings that News UK were launching a new channel. So I was like, okay, well, that's an option. They're startups. I've never done TV before. I haven't got a job. I need a job. So actually my old manager from the Express works at GB News. So I was in contact with her. But I got in contact with somebody that I used to work with a while ago at OK Magazine, who was the head of casting at News UK. So I got in touch with Charlotte and just said, hey, fancy a chat? And it happened really quickly. Within sort of a couple of weeks, they were like, okay, we need producers on board as soon as possible. We're about to launch a TV channel. I was like, right, okay. I didn't really have time to process the job. Kind of went straight in, started on my first day, and we're like, right, okay, we're launching a TV channel in, I think it was 6 weeks. I was like, oh gosh, okay. So yeah, it happened really quickly. It wasn't something I really thought about. I didn't sort of stop and think about my career and say, oh, do you know what? I would like to go into TV at this point. I kind of just found myself in a bit of a sticky situation, was looking for something, this came up, I decided to go for it, and the rest is history. But I actually love it, and now I literally look back and think, yes, I've tried print, I've tried digital, I've tried radio. TV is actually my favourite, and TV is what I want to stay in and what I want to pursue. So it all worked out very well in the end.
I guess life is what you make it. Like, you take the opportunities that you're given, or you make opportunities for yourself. But if you had to choose someone to look up to, or a company, or somebody that you've taken inspiration from, who would it be?
Do you know, I've always looked up to Alex Crawford, the Sky News correspondent. So she's been here, there, and everywhere in war zones, reporting from the front line. And I just really aspire to that, particularly because she's a woman. I think that's really, she's breaking boundaries. Like, that's sort of, I don't know, for so many years, sort of men have done the risky roles. They've gone out and done all of the bolshy things. And I just really respect her for being a woman, going out to these front lines, probably putting herself in a very vulnerable and dangerous position. I think she's spoken about times where she's literally been put in cars by the Taliban and taken hostage. And I just think that must be such a scary, like a scary moment for her to pursue with her career, knowing all of the risks, knowing that she's a woman and people in other countries might not take her as seriously because she's a woman and not a man. And I just really respect her for doing that. I think she's just a great journalist. And also more recently, actually, I've started looking up to Sam McAllister. She is the BBC producer behind the famous Prince Andrew Newsnight interview. I just think producers often get forgotten about, right? It's the person on camera that gets the rating. And I just think she made herself very known on social media for backing that interview. And I rate that for her. Like, make yourself known. You're a great producer. Like, that interview wouldn't have happened without a brilliant producer behind the scenes pursuing it, setting the whole thing up. And she's just done really well. And she's actually I think she's just released a book about sort of getting scoops that I haven't had a chance to read yet, but I really want to read because I think she's a brilliant producer as well.
You mentioned how the fact that the kind of presenter or host gets the most like criticism and gets the well dones. But if you had to think about something that is kind of most undervalued from a TV aspect, or maybe even your journalism aspect, that people don't understand or people disregard or disrespect, what would it be?
I honestly think people just don't understand the logistics that go into everything. So, like, you see a reporter on the Mile on Jubilee weekend, right? You do not understand the logistics that have gone into that. There's a producer behind the scenes that is in touch with the palace trying to get accreditation. There is a producer liaising with a camera crew to make sure they're there at the right time. There's a producer trialing out the connection days before the event because they know there's going to be thousands of people there. I think people just think it's a matter of get a camera, jump in front of the camera, speak for a minute, and you're done. But it's really like there is a lot of logistics that go into everything, and also with guest booking as well. Like, planning producers have been bidding those guests for months on end before they've agreed to come on air. Like, you really have to sell the product. If you want to get a big guest on air, you really have to sell it to them. You really have to do some begging. You really have to flatter them quite a lot to get them to actually come on. So it's not just a matter of, hi, blah blah blah, do you want to come on the show tomorrow? Like, there's a lot that goes behind that. It's, you have to pursue these people. Yeah, as I say, it's not just as easy as picking up the phone to a big guest and saying, hey, we've got a slot available tonight, do you want to come on? There is a lot of logistics behind everything.
With a lot of logistics, things can go wrong. Has there ever been a time that something has gone wrong and you've gone, oh dear, and is it an experience that you remember for the rest of your life, or is there a positive experience that you can think of?
Oh, I've had an experience where a presenter has asked me to book a guest, and there was a miscommunication, and I have booked the guest's son by accident, who is in no way related. So she's like, oh, book this person. And I'm like, so I'm Googling this person. I don't really know who he is. And the son pops up. I'm like, oh, that must be him. So I book the son for a segment. And it gets to the day, and she's like, so have you booked this person? I'm like, oh no, I booked this person. She's like, no, that's not who I meant. I wanted this person. It's like, oh gosh. So you then have to stand the person down. You have to have really awkward conversations, and you then have a mad panic that you've got no guests in that slot for later in the show. So yeah, I would say like in TV, communication is so key, and it avoids so many logistical problems as well. I actually had a bit of a tech meltdown the other day as well, on the day of the confidence vote with the Prime Minister. So I was on College Green, just trying, like, grabbing guests, grabbing people, grabbing whoever I could, grabbing MPs for our prime time slot. I think it was Jeremy Kyle presenting at the time, so I was under a lot of pressure to get a lot of guests, and our poor cameraman. So we use live views as our camera equipment, so that and the connection just completely cut away from the gallery, and I had an MP standing in front of the camera, and I was like, oh, what are we gonna do? So in those situations, it's literally just a matter of quick thinking. It's like, okay, what is our backup? What can we do here? So we literally ended up, it felt like we were in the dinosaur ages, using my phone on loudspeaker to the director in the gallery, liaising with them that way, because they still had our camera feed, they just didn't have the audio feed, and we somehow managed to do it. It was very stressful. Like, I could tell this MP was getting really, like, irritated, like, what is going on? You just have to remain calm, think logically, like, okay, what is our backup? But things always go wrong. People always let you down, particularly with, like, logistically as well. Like, when you're relying on other people to sort of arrange things for you. So, like, when you're getting accreditations to places, when you're asking for permission in places to film, you're relying on somebody else to have sorted it for you. They don't always do it. You have to just persist. You have to be quite firm. If you arrive and they say, oh no, we actually can't do it, you just have to persist and say, look, we agreed this. I've got my camera crew here. We kind of need to go ahead. So yeah, things happen, but it's how you deal with it.
Definitely. And with dealing with things, there must be a lot of stuff that goes on in your day-to-day activities. Could I be nosy and ask, what do you do on a day-to-day? Because obviously a producer does a lot more stuff than people understand.
They do. So my day-to-day is that I'm a producer on the news bulletins team. And so the news bulletins on TalkTV go out every half an hour. So my day-to-day is I arrive at work at 4 a.m. I am working away. So I come in, I look at the news of the day, I listen into other people's bulletins. So I'll listen into BBC News, I'll listen into Sky News, I'll see what they're running, just to help me decide on my running order. I will then decide on so my bulletins are 3 minutes long. I'll decide on a running order. So me and my senior producer will have a discussion about what our top story is. We will see if we can find anybody that will be willing to speak to us about that top story, so we can get a soundbite for our bulletin. We will then build our bulletin from start to finish, and I will go down to the gallery at 10 to 6 and I will output that bulletin. So we'll have our presenter in the studio, we'll do a quick rehearsal. My job is to make sure she's happy, make sure we're hitting time, make sure there's no typos in the script, the pictures all match the script, things like that. And then I literally do that every half an hour until I leave at 2 p.m. So bulletins every half an hour. So I'm constantly updating new lines, adding new stories, cutting new sound bites. It's constant, but it's good. But then other times I'll work on the longer programmes. So last night, actually, I worked on the Tom Newton-Dunn show, The News Desk. So for example, I was allocated a reporter. The reporters get sent out to find their own stories. They will send their content back to us where we need to produce it, essentially. So yesterday I was working on a bit of a fun story, actually, about how traditional children's foods are going out of fashion. So things like fish fingers, beans, what were the other examples? Spaghetti on toast, things like that are going out of fashion because people are feeding their children risotto and avocado and poached eggs. So it's a bit of a fun VT. And so my reporter went out and sort of found a case study, found this mumfluencer who feeds her children very posh snacks that I've never heard of. And so he went out filming for the whole day. I spoke to an expert during the day, like a dietitian, to talk me through the trends in foods. He sends all that back to me. At the end of the day, I'll sit and edit the VT altogether. So make it into a product that can play out on TV. So it all really depends on what show you're on. But it's quite nice at the moment. I would say at the start of the launch of TalkTV, everyone was very assigned to their teams, and now we're all merging a bit. So it's quite nice. We get to do sort of different things. So I'm working on a few of the shows actually over the summer, as well as doing the bulletins. But yeah, it's quite nice to do something different each day.
I bet, because like you say, with doing them every half an hour, they must get quite repetitive. But during those times, you must use lots of different kind of technology. What would your favorite piece of technology be? I know it's really informal, but you've got to be a nerd sometimes. Is it like a camera, or is it your phone because you can do everything on it, or do you have something in the gallery or maybe a studio that you love?
Honestly, the piece of technology that we rely on, and I don't know what I would do without, is our talkback box, because we obviously we have that in the gallery, and so because our bulletins are so regular every half an hour, we don't run back up to the office in between. We'll stay and work in the gallery. So I will literally sit there and produce my bulletins from the gallery. Whereas I have a senior producer upstairs. And so I use Talkback to speak to my senior producer. And if I didn't have that, it would be like, I don't know what I would do without it. So like I'm constantly like, can you check that script for me? Can you help me with this? Can you get some pics for this? And we always say, like, if we didn't have Talkback, it would feel like we were in the ancient ages, because we wouldn't know how to communicate with each other. So Talkback is a godsend. And I'm not going to lie, the rest of the technology, I'm kind of, it goes way over my head. I kind of let the director deal with that, and I'm like, okay, I'll just sit and write my scripts. So we use a system called iNews to produce. Have you heard of iNews before?
I haven't actually. It's something new.
We use iNews, which is a TV like running order software, which we write all of our scripts in. We cut all of our pictures in it. It times everything automatically for us, and that's where we output. Quite a lot of TV networks use it, and that's where we output the shows from. It's a really good, like, clear, easy system to use. And then we use Avid to cut video, and Avid and iNews are interlinked. So if you cut something in Avid and you send it to iNews essentially. So everything runs out of iNews. That's how we operate. So yeah, I rely on those two as well. Otherwise, I wouldn't know whether I was coming or going.
You must have lots of different experiences that kind of make you, like you say, think on your feet. But what's the most important lesson you'd say you've learned through your career? Because obviously you've transitioned through multiple roles. You kind of made your job be there for you because you were looking for something after the pandemic. What is the most important lesson you've learned?
The most important lesson I've learned was probably at the period where I was made redundant, just to not let things knock you down and to just always persevere. So like during that time, I was reaching out to people. I was following up with people that I've worked with before. Like, you have to, in this industry, is very much who you know, not what you know. I think a lot of people say that, but it's very true. I think you just have to be bold and get in touch with people, even if you're a bit embarrassed, even if you haven't spoken to them in years. Just get in touch with them. From my experience, it's always gone down really well. Like, in that period where I was made redundant, I reached out to somebody that I worked with like 7 years ago and was like, hey, how are you? Got any jobs? And they were literally just like, oh, hi, great to hear from you. Yeah, we've got a couple of freelance gigs. Like, it's always just worth reaching out to people. And never shy away from things, never sort of back down, just always persevere. I find that with jobs as well. Like, you have to, with Talk TV, actually, when I applied for the job, I didn't hear back for a couple of weeks, and I just was constantly on the case, like, hi, have you got an update yet? I think you really have to push these people. These people are really busy. From my experience of now working in the industry, these people aren't lying when they say they're really, really busy, and so they might forget about you. As harsh as it sounds, they might forget about you. So you really just have to chase it and just persevere with everything.
I can completely understand that, because obviously with doing this myself, I've completely done everything for it. I book guests, so I can understand the issues that you have. I schedule everything, I edit everything, I publish everything. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on that people wouldn't understand. But where would you see yourself in, like, say, 5 years' time? Because you're doing a lot of stuff at the moment. Do you think that hopefully you'll be a senior producer at Talk, or do you think that maybe you might be somewhere different.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, you never know what the future holds. At the moment, I'm very much enjoying my time at TalkTV. I think I think I'd be stupid to go anywhere else right now. It's a new product. I do not know where in the next 5 years. It could be the biggest thing in the world, and so I'm very happy where I am. Yeah, obviously, senior producer is something that I would love to go for in the next couple of years. Like, all I want to do is progress in my career, get more responsibility, try new things. But in the future, I would really like to work abroad. I would really like to work in America for a short while. I just think it'd be a really good experience. Like, the media industry is obviously very big in America as well. So if there's anywhere else I would like to work, it would be America. And well, Piers Morgan's show actually airs on Fox News and in Sky News Australia. So I do wonder if there will be the opportunity to maybe travel with that in the future. We'll have to see what happens. And I would also like to sort of work on more assignments in the future. So sort of like, I don't know, go to America for the US election for 6 weeks and just cover it there, or like go, I don't know, go to Australia for the general election there. Do you know what I mean? Like, things like that. I just think that would be like short projects. I just think that would be really fun. That's not something I've done before, and so it's something I would really like to do. A bit more field producing, like going out in the field, sort of working with the reporters, sending stuff back. I've done things like that a couple of times, but I would really like to get some more experience in that. So, to be honest, the next 5 years for me are just about getting as much experience in everything as I possibly can, so that I can start to progress. In 5 years, I'll be 30, and so and so at that point, I sort of want to be hitting new levels in my career, you know. But I think TV is the place to stay, as I said earlier, after working in sort of all other areas of the media, digital, print, radio. I'm happy in TV. I think this is where I would like to stay.
I can completely understand that. You speak of the fact that you'd like to go on some field recordings, maybe getting some vox pops, maybe just doing anything out in the open. But if you had to name or think of one area that you've not produced a show on yet, or you've not produced a bulletin on yet, what would it be? Because you've mentioned your elections, but would you like to focus on something else that's clear to you that you have as a hobby? Or is there something else that you can just say it's on your list that you want to do?
Well, that's a good question, you know. What would I like to do? I would really like to actually work at something like London Fashion Week, because I actually did fashion in my A levels, and I really enjoyed fashion as well. And when I was younger, I always thought I was going to work in the fashion industry. So that's also something that I really enjoy. And so I think that would be a really fun thing to work on as a TV producer, like going to London Fashion Week. I don't know, like getting interviews with the big fashion designers, talking to the crowds, you know, things like that. I think that would be really fun. And I always love the red carpet events as well. So I used to do a few of the red carpet events with so when I was a video editor at the Express, OK Magazine is in the same company as that. So I did a bit of work for OK as well, and used to go to the red carpet events, like the Pride of Britain. I went to a couple of the ITV Paloozas, the Soap Awards, a few things like that, and they were always really fun to go to. But I was always there just as a digital producer, and so I think it'd be really fun, like as a TV producer, because you have the live aspect. It's just a bit more fun. Like you have a camera, you're literally live on air. Who can speak to me? Like, I just think it's a lot more fun. So I would definitely like to do more things, more like jazzy, glamorous things in the future. You know, I love news. I love working in news, but it's nice to switch it up and put on a nice dress sometimes.
I get that completely, because it's nice to throw yourself in the deep end and get kind of uncomfortable, because that's where you learn the most. But do you ever feel like there's times where there's pressure, or there's times where you're struggling that you go, oh dear, what am I going to do? Or how am I going to do it? Because I spoke to quite a few people and they were like, pressure doesn't bother me anymore. But in such a high, I guess, high pressure environment is what I'm looking for. Do you feel like there's kind of maybe even imposter syndrome?
Yes. I am under pressure every single day in my job. There are times where I'm literally looking at the clock, like, I'm not going to make it to air. I'm not going to have time to do this. Like, you just sometimes have those days where there's so much going on, and I'm just like, I just do not have the time to do this. Like, there will be times where we have, like, I don't know, 4 minutes to air, and a big story has just broken. Like, I can't even think of a recent example, but I know there has been loads of recent examples. I think actually the Partygate one, when Boris Johnson and Rishi were handed a fine over Partygate, I think that dropped on our news wires at about 3 minutes to air, and we were like, right, okay, this is a bloody huge story. Like, we need to fully produce this in 3 minutes. And I was literally just like, I think I had 30 seconds where I just sat there and was like, right, okay, what do I do? And then you literally just have to go for it. I was just like, right, okay, writing in some script, getting in some pictures. Like, you just have to be so focused and just do what you can. Like, it's a lot of pressure. Everything's under such short time constraints, particularly when we're producing bulletins every 30 minutes. Like, sometimes things do break so close to the wire, and but it's not an option to not get it in, because we work in the news, so you have to do it. And also, something my manager always says, which I really like respect, she always says, like, only do what you can do. So, like, if there is a story that's breaking and you have time to write it, but you don't have time to get pictures, that's fine. We've broken the news. It's there. It's fine. We also have all of these. Another thing we have to do is, like, produce graphics for each story. So, like, like the lower third straps that you see on screen. She says, if you don't have time to get a graphic in, it's fine. If you've just read the story and told the viewers the story, that is the main thing. That's all you need to do. Like, yes, if you can get the graphic on, if you can get the pictures on, it's great, but don't bust your gut to do it. And journalists will always try and, like, go above and beyond. It's just in our nature. So we'll kick ourselves if we don't get those pictures in. We'll kick ourselves if we don't get that graphic on. But in retrospect, we got the story, and that's the main thing. We should still be proud of ourselves for doing that. But yeah, pressure is, I mean, going back to the day of the Prime Minister's confidence vote when I was on College Green, and I was on the phone to the producers back in the studio, who were saying, it was about 10 to 10. They're saying, okay, we have an empty slot at 10 o'clock. We need a guest for 10 o'clock. I'm like, right, okay. Give me 5 minutes. And I'm, like, running around College Green, finding MPs. Like, can anyone speak to us? I'm, like, panicking. Like, I need to fill this slot. I think literally like 10:01, I found an MP that was willing to speak to us, like, dragged them on camera and was like, okay, go. And there's times like that where you literally think, okay, I'm not going to fill this slot. I'm going to have to call the gallery back and say, I'm really sorry, I haven't been able to do that. You haven't got a guest for 10 o'clock, which obviously would leave them in a really difficult position, because they would have nothing to fill in their show. But to be honest, like, most of the time, like, you get it done. You just work away and you get it done. You just have to not panic and think logically. Going back to communication, is so key. Like, if I hadn't got somebody in that moment, I would have just had to call them straight away. Like, you have to just put your big boy hat on, call them and say, I'm really sorry, I haven't been able to do it. That's that. Because if I don't tell them, they're going to be getting to 10 o'clock like, okay, what have we got next? Like, what do I do? So you really just have to be so clear and communicate, and they'll always understand. Like, there's only so much you can do. If there's literally nobody that wants to speak to me, I can't magic an MP. Do you know what I mean? So it's just one of those things. But that was a stressful day. I'm not going to lie.
I can completely understand that, because if nothing can go out, there's kind of a space that needs filling. And with a presenter, they are absolutely gifted in what they do, but it's really difficult to fill time, and it's definitely an art. But if we had to sum this podcast up, what would be one bit of advice you'd be giving to someone who's trying to either get into the media or just even in life?
I would say, be ballsy. Reach out to people, offer yourself to do unpaid work. I did so much unpaid work before I started doing paid work. As sad as it sounds, you just have to put your name out there. You just have to be really willing. Build up your contact list. do things off your own back. Like, I had my WordPress account when I was 16 and I was writing my own articles, you know what I mean? Just things like that. I was reaching out to people saying, can I interview for my article? And it was literally just an article on WordPress that I was putting out on my Facebook, putting out on my Twitter, just to literally do anything you can to add to your CV. People will appreciate the boldness, honestly. We have a few work experience people coming into TalkTV at the moment, because they've reached out and people are like, yeah, like, people will give you the time of day. We were there once. Everyone will always give you the time of day if you're willing to learn, if you're willing to listen, and if you're willing to help. Yeah, be ballsy, reach out to every single person that you know.